This podcast is part of the Midwest Podcast Network. Find out more about our other shows and how to support our network at midwestpodcastnetwork.com. You are now tuned in to Westworld FM, a podcast about HBO's Westworld. My name is Alex.
My name is Nick.
And I'm John.
Today we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 7 of the show titled Les Ecorches. We will not be discussing the next time on preview at the end of the show, but we will be spoiling everything through Season 2, Episode 7 of the series. So please pause and go catch up if you're not current on the show.
What was that name again?
It's Les Ecorches. We'll talk about what that means in a second.
Yes, what is that loosely translated?
The flayed.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah,
that's dark.
It would be French, and it would mean the flayed. But you can find more episodes of our podcast at westworld.fm. We're also on Westworld FM. We are also Westworld FM on Twitter, and you can send feedback to westworldfm@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our show and share your thoughts on HBO's Westworld. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Westworld or our podcast. If you enjoy this show or any other show on the Midwest Podcast Network, please consider heading over to patreon.com/MidwestPodnet. That's MidwestPodnet, and pledge as little as $1 a month to make our network even better. Special thanks to Jason K., who's pledged at the level of $10 a month. Speaking of the Midwest Podcast Network, on the Midwest Game Nerds this past Sunday, we discussed a game called Detroit Become Human. Did we not, John?
We did.
And there's a lot of Westworldy type stuff in there.
Very much so.
And some of you might be playing it. So if you don't listen to the Midwest Game News podcast, please go check it out.
You're making a mistake.
Let us know what you think about our coverage of Detroit.
I was told it was a very good episode.
That's good. I thought it was good, but I was in it.
We had a lot of discussion, which is awesome, and it was lengthy about the game in particular. Which was something I feel like we kind of cut ourselves short sometimes. So it was nice to actually have the time to talk it out. So
for sure,
I'm excited to listen to it as an avid regular listener of your guys' other show, other show. How many others?
There's no spoilers, so you could listen to it before playing the game if you wanted
That's true.
to.
Oh, I actually am resting my hands on the copy as we speak.
Yes, because we are going to give it away, and you can enter yourself into that contest.
I'm modeling it. You can't see.
Yeah.
But
just go to the Midwest Game Nerds podcast Facebook page, like the page, and then share the post about Detroit.
That's so easy.
And then you're entered.
Just go do it.
United States only, please. We're not made of money. I can't ship it to Japan or anything, but we still love you.
We do.
So, all right.
How representative of Detroit is this game?
Not very.
Is Detroit is the setting relevant at all?
15%.
Relevant, maybe, but it's not.
Because it's in the future. Are there any like landmarks or like anything?
The Renson's in there, and the Spirit of Detroit's there, and
the Hart Plaza ring.
Does it feel accurate? Is it like to scale?
They feel like they're accurate representations of those things, but it's not an accurate representation of the city. So
the Fist is there. Woodward Avenue.
Can you walk around all these areas?
Not really.
It's not an open world by any means.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh. So anyway,
Detroit
go listen to more
again.
Yeah. Go listen to more on the Midwest Game Nerds podcast. We are going to get to some feedback that we had this week. We did get an email from Fred. He says, just hear me out in the subject so you know it's good. He says, after a rewatch, I picked up on Dolores' wording in the opening of episode 6. Quote, he didn't question whether or not he had agency, whether or not he had the right to end me or himself, but whether he should. Fred says, I didn't catch the or himself initially, and now it has me going down a rabbit hole. Why would he question if he had the right to end Dolores and himself unless he'd come to the realization that he, too, was a host? Could both Bernard and Arnold before him have only ever existed as a host? Was Arnold Ford's original creation that he used as an assistant to help develop and test all of the other hosts? Then when Arnold realized that what he was, he used Dolores to commit suicide, not because he was afraid to, but because he wasn't programmed to do it himself. Because Ford needed him as an assistant or tool, he then created another version, Bernard, someone that he could completely trust and control. I'm starting to think that there's nothing there to being an Arnold consciousness out there somewhere because Arnold was never a human. Just another theory to throw on the pile. I'm ready to stop my speculation and accept whatever will happen in episode 7 through 10. I'm sure there are some major twists and turns yet to come. It'll be a fun ride. Thank you, Fred. I think it's an interesting idea, but I think even episode 7 mostly disproves that.
Yeah.
Unless Ford is lying to Bernard, which is possible, but I think, to me, I think Arnold is a real person.
Yeah, it's always kind of felt that way, even just in the way Ford talks about him. He clearly holds him in like the highest regard, higher than he holds anything else or anyone else. And I think it's always it's with a real like fondness that he speaks
for sure
about him.
Yeah.
Something that he doesn't seem to quite, he definitely looks at the hosts as a creator looks on their creations, not as like their sort of companion.
Yes.
Or like,
yeah. And Dolores asked
brother.
him, "Are we friends?" And he's like, "I wouldn't say that." In the first season, for a lot of reasons, but I think partly because of that,
because of Arnold,
creator creation, and the Arnold situation as well. So, any other thoughts, John?
No, I'm just trying to take that all in.
Okay, all right. We got another email from Sue. Sue wrote in. She said, "Hi guys, I love how you find some humor in Westworld. You were cracking me up with the Teddy butt count and the multiple stubs thing." Also, as a math teacher, it was refreshing to hear one of you refer to the order of magnitude in the second or third podcast. It isn't often people use math references when talking about a TV show. Referring to the show, don't hosts recognize other hosts? If so, if Emily was a host, why would she have to test that guy to check him out? Thinking she's not a host. Thanks again for an entertaining podcast. Sue.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good point. And my only headcanon that I could come up against that would maybe be the idea that Emily might be programmed to not know she's a host and therefore doesn't pay attention to things like the mesh network.
That's what I was thinking.
Like that kind of situation. Or I think that's kind of my main thing there, but there's nothing that tells us that that's true necessarily. So, but there's a way that they kept Bernard from knowing he was a host, and I think that would be a self-actualization that would be difficult to manage with a bunch of hosts out there.
Right.
It would be that first step towards the maze. I am a thing that's not a human, and I have these other powers.
Considering who she is, or that if she was a host, who she's in the likeness of, because she's so unique and important, I could see Ford spending more time on her to make sure that, like
putting extra protections and
exactly.
Yeah.
But like the Man in Black, who continually thinks everything's about him and everything is Ford meddling.
Ford messing with him.
Maybe it really is just at face value.
Yeah.
What it looks like.
Yeah. Sue also wrote in with a PS. She said, "This is a PS to my earlier email. Now I get the math reference. I'm watching Preacher and listening to your season 1 podcasts and discovered we have a chemical engineer in our midst. Loving Preacher, by the way, Sue." Thank you, Sue.
Yes, you will not hear any math references from me, as I hate math and suck at it.
Well, she said episode 2 or 3, and it would have been John and I.
Yeah.
And I don't remember talking about order of magnitudes, but I may have.
It's something you probably would have brought up, not me.
It's something that
Probably.
You'll slip into
I'm an
conversation
art major.
without realizing it.
I'm an art major, okay? Like an art major.
Yeah.
I'm the most useless of majors next to poli-sci.
That's unfair to art majors, including yourself.
Just saying.
Hey, don't forget you're sitting next to a film major too. Equally, not important in the grand scheme of things. I'm one of the lucky few who actually is doing something that I went to school for.
We here at the Midwest Podcast Network loves all film and art majors, so please don't write in with any of your complaints against the views of Nick Blauvelt or John Morrell.
Let's commiserate together. Send them in.
Usually
Let's talk about
people
them.
in those schools are the first ones to make jokes about it.
Yeah.
That's true. All right. The only other thing that I had for feedback, we had Sir Apricot leave us a review on iTunes with the title Unhurried and Unpretentious. This is one of 3 Westworld pods that I listen to, and I like how relatable and Nick and Alex seem to be. This podcast is refreshing in that it has the casual atmosphere of 2 dudes chatting about their favorite show, so you'll get occasional jokes along with their insight. These guys are funny and charming. Thank you, Sir Apricot.
So nice.
Thank you.
Even
though you didn't reference me at all, but I've played a very minimal role in this show.
Well, maybe whoever they are
he could be
is
catching up. Yeah.
But either way,
Thanks, anyways.
There's a lot of John and go around on the Game Nerds.
Oh yeah,
Even
very
though
true.
he quickly gets overtaken by Alex and Brian time to talk over each other.
Yes.
That's a lovely review. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Tell your friends.
Please, anybody else, go leave us more.
Tell the rest of the Apricot clan.
Yeah.
To listen. There's a show for everyone.
Miss Apricot and Child Apricot.
Duke and Duchess Apricot.
So Les Ecorches, as I said, roughly translates from French into English as the flayed. But the
God, that makes me think of Home Alone.
The term...
You're what the French call les incompetents.
But Les Ecorches. So écorché in English means an anatomical model or part... No, excuse me. An anatomical model of part or all of the human body with the skin removed to allow study of the underlying musculature. Oh. So it's the Vitruvian Man hosts that we're seeing without the skin on them and stuff like that. So interesting. I don't necessarily know what it means here other than like potentially like we do see some torture on Bernard in this episode, which is
that's the first thing that came to mind for me. It was just them kind of picking him apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
From the inside out, sort of, you know?
It's certainly Bernard on display this episode with them trying to pull things out of his brain, essentially. So it gets bookended with that.
We do get that shot towards the end of the episode, too, when he's going through his memories. We see when Dolores was only like a head and like feet or something.
Well, yeah, and she's got the like metal framework.
We see her like her innards.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I did want to touch on the previously on, which is once again maybe only one line spoken by Anthony Hopkins himself, and a bunch of rhythmic editing and interesting sounds.
I like these so much better.
They're so good. It's so much more. I don't know.
Cinematic.
And it sets the right tone for what's about to follow more so than the exposition dump versions of the previously on. So that was cool. But all right, let's get into the recap. In a cold open in the 2 weeks later time frame, as Bernard and Stubbs try to make a break for the satellite phone in Teresa's office, they're caught by Strand and paraded at gunpoint to the secret lab below Ford's childhood cottage. As Strand and Hale interrogate them in an attempt to find Abernathy's control unit, a tech finds a hidden door in the lab that leads to a closet full of Bernard bodies. So what did you guys think of the Bernard bodies?
Actually, I don't remember how Bernard and Stubbs got there.
So where
are they coming from?
Bernard and Stubbs walks up to Bernard, says, "Hey, there's a sat phone in Teresa's office. Let's get the hell out of here. Strand's doing something weird. He doesn't care about us."
Okay, they were just talking. Okay.
They were talking, and then Strand walks up and is like, "Hey, follow me. I have a gun." And
come with me if you want to live.
Basically, they found Teresa's blood in that lower lab, and they were like, "We think one of you killed her to sell the key to the highest bidder, sell the data to the highest bidder."
Right, because they knew she was pulling data from the park.
Yep.
I didn't really like this scene that much because it didn't feel like Westworld. It felt like a Bourne movie or something. It might be because of Luke Hemsworth's passing resemblance to me. He looks to me more like Matt Damon than a Hemsworth, which is kind of funny. But it just something about all that. I was just kind of like, and Strand is like, "One of you," and I'm like, "Well, that's." It just is all like very convenient, you know. That Stubbs is like, he's up to something. He's standing right behind me, isn't he? It was basically what happened.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's still. I get so much that people were like they're playing Bernard to try and jog his memory because everything with Strand and Hale in these like bookends that we're getting feels like theater. It feels like they're putting on a performance.
Yes.
And it doesn't quite. They don't feel like they're part of Westworld. They feel like they're another TV show, which is really strange to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And like, what did you think of the reveal of the multiple Bernard bodies, though? Like that alone.
It was cool, but it wasn't shocking. Like I, as a viewer, was not like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
There was more than one Bernard shell because it makes sense that.
And literally nobody there feels like they are shocked either.
Yeah, but the question is like, why are there so many Bernard shells? I think, and like, if we call back to like season 1 when Ford was in that bunker and he was printing bodies, was he printing Bernard's at that point? Like, and why was he printing Bernard's?
He had like Bernard's schematics.
Yeah, he did have the Bernard schematics for sure.
Yeah.
Just like that phrase.
That phrase.
Yeah.
But
see the blueprints for Bernard.
Yeah, notably that host printer is empty now, by the way. It did not have a host in it this season.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's a good point, John, and I'm a dummy for not even thinking about like that, because as far as we know, there aren't multiple copies of any other hosts out there. So why a secret army of Bernards?
So my impression of it was, like, I think we learn at some point towards the end of the season in season 1 that Bernard has come close to figuring out that he's a host several times previously.
Okay, and so those are all decommissioned?
They're either like, maybe they're decommissioned Bernards, maybe they're Bernards that got damaged somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe Ford takes out his anger on Bernard when he's pissed. I don't know, but it didn't feel like that much of a mystery to me, but I don't really know if I'm not saying that there couldn't be more to it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So,
but wouldn't you think that if he started to get close, Ford could just roll him back a little bit and not have to swap bodies?
That's kind of the one thing that kind of sets me back and thinks it's like just like Damaged Bernards, which is my album.
Yes.
For some cover
sounds like
band.
A band. The Damaged Bernards. Bernard schematic by the Damaged Bernards. Delete old dad.
Yes. It's not like there's I wouldn't think there's anything in the host body that wouldn't allow them to just put a new control unit in. So maybe that was him trying to perfect the Bernard body. Maybe because no. Well, I don't know.
Was there like a frumpy Bernard and like
one of them's just ripped?
Yeah,
just a ripped Jeffrey Wright.
He's just a tank.
And schlubby Bernard,
yeah,
like
a fat, really overweight Bernard.
Yeah. His dress shirt's hanging out of his pants. Yeah.
Oh man, that would be awesome. Just all these failed Bernards.
I mean, that could be it. But we see Ford in this episode workshopping the consciousness of Bernard and Arnold, or the personality or the programming of it. But I'm wondering if there was any of it that was him trying to like he printed out the body and was like, no, he's got higher cheekbones than that. And then like, oh, well, no, his eyebrows not twitching the right way, or like, I don't know. Like, it could just be.
That would have been hysterical if it was a room full of like Jeffrey Wright lookalikes, all in the same wardrobe, like clearly different actors, but like
one of them's got like bug eyes,
just close
like
one without facial hair, and or just like they had a casting call, guys who look like Jeffrey Wright.
It's any stunt double that's worked on a Jeffrey Wright movie before.
Just not quite right yet.
Ooh, not quite right.
Yeah.
Yep.
With the W.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
Beautiful. That's the second album by the.
Not quite right.
Yeah. All right. The next scene.
Wait. Last thing.
Okay.
Could it be so he had them so that Bernard could be in multiple places at once, or could there only be one Bernard consciousness out there at a time? Otherwise, it would get even more confused, considering he's got a layer of fake memories, a layer of real memories.
I mean, if he's not accessing the mesh network, I don't think it would be a problem, but that doesn't really explain why they're all in that bunker bagged up as if they're like in storage.
I guess that's true.
Like, wouldn't they still be out and about doing stuff?
Well, Ford could have recalled them at some point before his death. Like,
right.
He might have, because I was thinking about when Bernard, like,
bring me my
when he captures and when he knocks Elsie out and then takes her to that cave and everything. Like, when is he doing all this stuff, and why does nobody else, wonder where he is? You know what I mean?
Know.
So I wondered if there were other Bernard, if he could like send out Bernard number 5 to like go do that, and then I don't know.
Potentially.
Yeah, maybe not.
I don't know. We'll see if we get more. But
room of Bernards.
Yes.
Or what if they all get turned on at the same time now? Like,
that'd be good. They're all waiting in the Valley Beyond to ambush the rest of the team.
Oh my God! If we get a scene of like multiple Jeffrey Wrights running around,
it's like the Burly Brawl from The Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, or the end of Star Trek Beyond, where there's like 8 Chris Pines on motorcycles, which is great.
All right. Second scene, which is after the opening, Hale tortures Bernard, attempting to make him remember who led the attack on the Mesa and what Dolores did with her father's control unit. Not a whole lot here other than the fact that they can simulate torture for the
sensations.
Yeah, so they had somebody screen capped it on Reddit, of course, and the list of simulations are crushing, denailing, which I looked at it and I was like, what is denialing? It's like, no. Dental torture, disembowelment, dismemberment.
What do they just clean his teeth for dental torture? Because that's just masochistic in and of itself.
Constantly prodding his gums with the dental tool.
Or polishing. Yeah. You're enough mint. That's enough.
They make you sit with the fluoride treatment for the rest of the day.
For an hour.
Or you're just sitting in the waiting room where it's got that smell.
But it's got a highlights magazine.
I was just going to say one copy of highlights. Just one.
And the puzzles are finished, so you can have zero fun with that highlights.
And then an old Reader's Digest.
The only fun you get out of it is reading the Goofus and Gallant comic.
That's beautiful.
Oh, man, you beat me to the highlights joke. That's
awesome. What else? We got electrical injury, foot whipping, which I don't know what that is. I assume it's misery. Hobbling.
Maybe maybe they whip the soles of your feet because they're really sensitive.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. Force feeding.
That sounds fun.
John's all about it.
I'll have that.
Knee
capping. What are we talking here? What are you force feeding?
Yeah, cake. Are we talking cake or pies?
Donuts?
Just not pancakes, please.
What would be the one food that, if it was being force fed, what would be the torture?
Pancakes, man, for sure. Because anybody eating pancakes, you can get 3 in before you're done. That's it. And you would throw up after that. Pancakes, I'm serious. I can eat a whole loaf of French toast, but you give me more than 3 pancakes, and I swear to God, I'll puke.
Mine would be overcooked asparagus.
Really?
Mushy asparagus just makes me want to puke immediately. I can look at it and puke, probably.
Wow. Man.
So if you were to force feed it to me, it would just not be good.
Interesting.
What about you?
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut?
Can't do it.
Okay. All right.
I could do some sauerkraut. I can't handle the aftermath.
It's the smell. If I can't smell it, I might be able to handle it, but just
he used to throw up eating ground beef, man. Straight up.
It was, I don't know. I'm not going to get into this right now.
I can tell you some stories, bro.
This is nice about having the brothers on the show.
Yeah.
So kneecapping, medical torture, pharmacological torture, like bioterrorism type shit, I guess. Psychological torture, scalping, solitary confinement, standing cell, which I don't.
Oh, it's a cell that's too small to sit or crouch. You have to stand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds awful.
Waterboarding is the last one, which was selected.
Are these alphabetical?
Yes, they are organized alphabetically on the tablet.
At least that's efficient.
Yeah. So thanks.
Find the standing cell.
Thanks to Reddit user Lee_Ars ARS for that screen grab that's on there. But yeah, no, that's awesome and horrifying at the same time, like many things in Westworld are.
It's sad that even exists. That that was already a menu and a function that they were oh, we just got to let me plug him in.
Yeah, I wonder why it exists.
Yeah, seriously.
Why did they even program it?
Why would you ever need to torture the information out of a host?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're transferring consciousnesses of human people to host bodies at some point, and you need to get information from them, why not?
Maybe this is a Delos thing and not a Ford thing.
That's what I would assume. I don't think Ford would put that in there.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. So now we go back to the 1 week after Ford's death time frame. Shortly after the train impacted the Mesa, Coughlin sends a second set of response teams to check up on the first team, who they lost contact with. The team utilizes haptic vests that are tuned to the host's mesh network so they can tell where the hosts are from up to 30 feet away.
Some Destiny radar shit right there.
Yeah. They find the initial response team laying naked in a heap and get flanked by the now armed band of hosts with Dolores. Stubbs realizes that the host may be targeting the cradle and informs Coughlin to intercept them. And meanwhile, Hale will not flee until she has a copy of Abernathy's key, and she won't let Stubbs know what's stored in his brain. Those vests are awesome.
Yeah, they're very cool.
That was a cool visual touch, and it was a cool thematic touch, and just an interesting technology.
Again, very video game. Very video game.
Absolutely.
Especially in the way it was presented to them, and they showed it on like the computer screen, and then it shows them actually wearing it, and the lights lighting up on it, and everything was like, it just reminded me of the radar in Destiny, or any game really, but specifically Destiny, because the Destiny radar is circular, and it has multiple red ring light things that show up to show you proximity. So
it makes me want to try like a VR game with that on, like a VR shooter, just to understand how effective it would really be. Because as I was watching it, I was like, I don't know how much that would work. But then I was like, if my torso was vibrating in the direction that I need to face to shoot something, like training with that, I feel like it would be a really advantageous tool.
It may not even be a vibration. It could just be a poke of some sort, like a prod to like point you in that particular direction.
True. That's true. But
it was pretty sweet.
It was very cool.
I like learning about the like counter host tactics that are being employed.
For sure. Yeah, that was. It's an interesting. The contingency plans that they have in place, albeit futile, are interesting to learn about for sure.
Feel free to cut this out, but is it just me, or does Teddy kind of look like a drag queen? No,
not really. No, in the black,
like for some reason his cheekbones were like so much more prominent to me. Like he just looked like a drag queen who overdoes their makeup specifically to like have that look. Do you know what I'm talking about, or am I an idiot? Like, you can call me an idiot if you think I'm an idiot.
I don't necessarily think you're an idiot. I do want to state that the views of John Morrell do not necessarily reflect the views of the Midwest Podcast Network. But I will say, like, it felt like they were making him feel more menacing or gaunt in a way to kind of like.
They do this a lot in this show where they really change characters' appearances based on kind of what's happening.
Yeah.
Because like later in this episode, we see William, and he looks like he is 1 billion years old.
Yeah, he did look super old.
Yes, and I was like, he doesn't look like that. No, like they're very good at using makeup and lighting to really influence the feel of a scene and the mood. I mean, they definitely go hard on the lighting for James Marsden to bring out those cheekbones. But
for the record, I think drag queen is the most PC term I could have used in this particular instance, so I'm going to stick with that.
That's fine. We're not dismissive or diminutive towards people who choose to cross-dress.
Correct.
So I just want that out there. But anyway, I didn't notice that. But I didn't consciously notice it, but I did.
His appearance really stuck out to me, and specifically his cheekbones, like that, like just very. They were so prominent.
He's just a very beautiful man.
He is.
I think that's the art major in you noticing.
It could be.
It's like
I am obsessed with anatomy, so
yeah.
There you go.
Fabulous is the term you're looking for.
Oh, he looked fantastic.
Very fabulous.
All right. I realized this episode was really hard to break down because they were literally changing scenes every couple minutes.
Very quick.
So pardon me if I missed something or if you think I missed something, feel
this
free
could
to
have been
break
one
in.
where we arrange it by characters better.
I probably should have done that. But all right. In the next scene, in the cradle, Bernard confirms that the red pearl he printed for Ford was a copy of Ford's consciousness that was uploaded to the cradle before Dolores killed Ford. Ford also explains the premise of the park. The hosts are controls, and they remain constant over the years, but the guests are there to be decoded so they can eventually become host versions of themselves. Finally, Bernard tries to get Ford to tell him the ending of his story, but Ford wants him to discover what the Valley Beyond is himself. It feels so good to have Anthony Hopkins back on the show.
1,000 times yes.
And it feels good. Like Bernard gets a little bit of a lot of the audience cipher in this scene, but the idea that he gets kind of pissed at Ford for cheating death, and Ford is kind of like, well, I can't really do that, but I'm here right now to accomplish things. Like it felt like I'm happy that the show was able to logically resurrect Ford rather than make it feel like just a cheap, we need to get Anthony Hopkins
surprise,
back in
I'm
the
back.
Show. Yeah.
Yeah. This is where he explains like how they made Bernard, right?
Not yet. That's coming up. They were in the cradle.
That's in like 2 scenes or something.
Something like that, okay. Yeah. But we'll get there.
So this scene didn't end with them going outside and walking through the street?
No, they did walk through the street.
Okay.
Yeah. That was when they were learning. They did. It mirrors the scene earlier in the series or earlier in the season when William is explaining his idea to James Delos. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. they froze the street and were kind of explaining everything.
I really like how he doesn't tell Bernard. He lets him reason it out.
Yeah.
Figuring out that they were decoding guests, as he puts it, not coding hosts.
I will say the decode the guests line felt really funny coming out of Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like for me, his performance in the scene as he's stumbling upon these things didn't quite feel as natural to me as a lot of the other Bernard dialogue does. So it pulled me out of it for a second, but I was eating it all up at the same time, so it didn't really matter that much. But
I think it's really cool because it feels like Bernard taking on his own life for the very first, not the first, but these few moments where he is able to actually express himself as himself. You know what I mean? Like, I see what you're saying, and there's a lot of like
the delivery was just
he almost like mashes his way through some of these words, and like he's so angry and so like just feeling so much that he has a hard time. Like, to me, it felt like an intentional choice while I was watching it, but I only watched it once, so I don't know. But it really felt like, I don't know, and maybe part of it is because he's playing opposite Hopkins in every scene, who just makes everything
does
better.
Circles around everything, really. Yeah. But no, that makes more sense. I guess I didn't really think about,
because for the rest of the episode, we know that he's once again like under the influence, so to speak.
Yes.
So he falls back into Bernard Arnold line, but now this is like he's really like finding his own voice.
When he's in the cradle and he's literally like questioning his creator as to what's going on here, and he's learning of like the Delos secret project.
Yeah.
In the first, like probably for the first time, it just seems like, I guess it does make sense that he would have a little bit more of like a. I wasn't putting myself in Bernard's shoes, I guess. I wasn't thinking about the fact that he was like not only shocked that Ford is alive still in some way, but also that there's all this crazy shit going on that he had no idea about.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is truly like question the nature of your reality. It's not just you. Like, at first he has to deal with the fact that, okay, I'm not who I thought I was. I'm not what I thought I was. But now everything I've been doing isn't even true. Like, his everything is a lie. Like, his entire existence, down to every detail, is like a falsehood, which is insane. I can't even grapple what that would feel like.
Yeah, like it's literally, it's him actually reacting to like the twist of the show.
Yeah.
Which in a lot of ways is an audience surrogate.
Like, imagine that you're like kind of in charge. You're like the lead, but you're like the lead of nothing. Like, everything you were doing is sort of pointless, or it's not why you were doing it. And somebody had hoodwinked you basically to do what they want you to do.
I think that's what I liked the most about this scene, is because even though we knew of these ideas of transcendence and whatnot that were kind of being played at, Ford and Bernard kind of confirm for us that we have really only seen the tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
In as figurative of a way as it can possibly mean. Like, there's so much more going on here that we have no idea about. And it's cool to have Bernard kind of be along the ride with us for once, instead of him being the dude who knows everything.
I mean, I thought he got like the rawest deal in season 1, but it just is exponentially worse in this episode alone. He just has to find out that he will never have a grasp on what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, you are just caught up in the current, and there's nothing you can do except go with it or just submit.
For sure.
And it's and he doesn't even get to do either of those things. He's like that's what's so funny is Ford's like, it's your story, you get to choose. Like, just kidding.
Now I'm you.
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's sweet. This is by far my favorite scene of the entire season. I can't not smile when Hopkins is on screen. I mean, I've always loved Anthony Hopkins. He's been around forever. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's a staple of like pop culture since I was a kid. Like, since Silence of the Lambs, pretty much everyone knows who Anthony Hopkins is. But man, the guy's just so good.
I will say the titles did have the with Ed Harris and Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I did see that.
I hope he's in every episode. The rest of the
he
season.
might be here for the rest of the season, or at least
I hope he's
another
in season
episode
3.
or two.
I hope he's like back to a regular because he's just so good.
That'd be amazing.
Well, it would be nice if he was like here and then gone again, and like we got a little bit of like a reprise sort of. I would just love it if he's back in because Ford is just so good.
I was so confident that he would be dead with the cradle because we knew that the cradle was going to get burned to the ground. I was so confident that when the cradle was gone, he'd be gone, but he's not, and that's even more crazy. Like, we literally don't know if Ford is still in there when Hale is talking to Bernard 2 weeks later.
Right.
So.
Yeah, man, where is he?
Go
ahead.
Sorry, I just trampled over your joke that you were going to make.
It's all good.
On the Westworld subreddit, user Aaron -- pointed out that there are wanted posters on the scene or on the set behind them in the city, and they're of Brian Burke and Eric Oskuski, who are executive producer and assistant art director.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun.
I like stuff like that.
It's not even just their picture; it says Brian Burke.
Oh, their names are on there.
Yeah,
that's great.
Nice.
That's fun. All right.
It's good to know somebody is like smiling while they're making this show. It's not just a bunch of like completely like unemotional, overly scientific, clinical people just writing,
coding the show together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
not smiling or making jokes or enjoying it.
Yeah.
I didn't think about this scene the way you guys are thinking about it. I was just the idea of him discovering all of these things like hadn't even really dawned on me, but hearing you guys talk it out like that, it was
well. And I think it's such an exposition heavy scene that it's hard not to just be there to try and learn what he's learning and to try and pull back a little bit. So like it I totally get it. Like I didn't think about how Bernard was feeling about it at all, but there's a lot there.
Yeah, so, for sure.
There's so much there. It's such a cool scene. Every little thing.
For sure. Great dialogue. I could play it like it. I don't know. You guys might not know, but I've been editing in clips of the audio into the shows. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I could just list all of Anthony Hopkins. Like I could cut 30 minutes of this episode into our episode, but clearly I'm not going to do that.
The line to end all lines was I don't think God rested on the seventh day.
Yes.
I don't think God rested on the seventh day, Bernard. I think he reveled in his creation, knowing that someday it would all be destroyed.
That's it. I mean, Jesus, that's so good.
Shit's incredible, man. All right, next up, old William and Maeve converge upon a ghost town after being chased by Ghost Nation. Maeve tries to finish off William by reprogramming Lawrence's cousins and almost succeeds until Lawrence himself gets the jump on her. Because Lawrence is awake, she can't reprogram him, but she convinces him to look into his past to see the horror that William has perpetrated upon him. Lawrence shoots the man in black, or William, close to center mass, but gets mowed down himself by a QA team that Sizemore summoned. Maeve sees her daughter abducted by Ghost Nation and almost gets shot, but Sizemore stops the QA team from finishing her off.
She does get shot.
She does get shot.
Yeah, but they don't. They were going to shoot her in the head, and then Sizemore told them not to.
I thought you meant she almost. I was like, got.
And I think
she got pretty lit up.
He said something along the lines of "She's useful to us" or something like that.
We need her.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily know why, other than I think Sizemore is like just more sympathetic to Maeve than he thought he would be in the situation.
Yeah.
So John, is William a host?
I think so.
Does he have bionic
I really
arms?
do. And one of the things that dawned on me the other day was Ghost Nation just leaves him be too. They're not trying to pull him out or whatever. Like they've gathered up other humans and things and tried to collect them or whatever. They leave him be.
Well, they were chasing after him and Lawrence.
Ghost Nation was?
Yeah, that's why they ended up at this town. Like in the previous episode, we do end up with after he's abandoned Emily, they're kind of riding along, and then they get like chased by Ghost Nation people, leading them into this episode essentially.
Yeah, but that's I mean they don't try to collect him specifically though. It is one of the things I feel like. I mean they have yet to pull him aside and be like, come with us or anything like that.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true.
But yeah, he gets shot like 5 or 6 times almost, like
twice. Once in each arm,
He's
once
hit in each
the
arm.
leg, and then in the like gut, essentially, or stomach.
yeah,
I'm gonna say because when they shot him in the arm, it didn't go poing and like reveal some metal glint that he probably has fleshy arms. But I want to edit that in now, just like a bullet deflecting sound.
You edit it in and then post it on the Westworld. Did anybody else notice these audio?
You might catch the bullet holes adjacent to him each time he got hit in the arm. He clearly has metal arms. It's just like the worst, like old 50s movie gunshot.
Well, even like
just throwing a Wilhelm scream.
Beautiful.
I think he's a host.
Do you actually think he's a host?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he's a host.
I don't think so.
If not a full host, like some form of hybrid where he has bionic arms. Like I really think
so. At minimum, bionic arms.
Yeah, minimum bionic arms, maximum full host. But I think he
the first 2 singles off of the new album by the Damaged Bernards.
But yeah, I think he's not just human anymore, at least. Because again, he looks 1,000,000 years old too. Like they could just be like, tuning him up every once in a while, like keep him going. I don't
oiling
know,
his joints.
Yeah,
that's why he couldn't sit down.
Right,
because he needed oil on his knees.
Oh man.
Yeah.
In black. I thought he was a goner.
Yeah, me too.
During this scene, I was like, they're gonna kill the best character on the show, and it's gonna be so nasty. But then in the same moment, I was like, does anything really end in this show? I don't know anymore.
I was horrified. I was like, oh my god, like he's gonna die right now, and what did it all mean? And I
you know what? And that would have been. I'm really glad it didn't happen, but that would have been like pretty awesome in a way to just be like, you know what? Sometimes you don't make it to the end. You don't get to do what you wanted to do, or like it would be definitely a real shitty thing for the audience, for the viewers. But like for William, it's kind of the ultimate like punishment. It's like you don't get your blaze of glory like his daughter described. You don't get to like reach the end of the road to El Dorado or whatever you're looking for. Like you don't get it. Sorry, you just die here in the dirt in a small little town. Like a chump.
You got to have Maeve reprogramming the hosts like fucking dudes with shotguns in Uncharted games coming up from behind you, like without you ever even knowing they're there.
God, that just made me so mad when you said that. I hate the first Uncharted so much. I felt William's pain in that moment. He's going to do it myself, and just gets up and I'm like, you idiot! You can't do this. That's why I quit that game.
He cries out at one point. He says, "You made your point forward. We both know this isn't where you want me to die." And so, like, I don't know. Like, that to me is making me wonder if, like Ford was watching this. Is he totally unaware of Maeve? Like,
do you think he was? That's what I'm wondering.
By watching this, I mean Ford was aware of the situation up to a certain point. Like, if we take it as Ford spoke through young Ford and Lawrence's daughter, and even maybe El Lazo at that one point. Giancarlo Esposito, El Lazo, I mean. He must know that Maeve is in the park doing stuff.
It's true.
So I'm wondering, like, if this situation, I don't know, I guess Lawrence was there to stop it from happening, but Maeve still was able to be like, hey, shoot this dude. He's done horrible things to you.
I wonder how omniscient Ford is. Like, does he know what's going on everywhere at all times? Is he effectively like, you know what I mean? Like, is he the system?
He's in the computer.
Just cut in that Zoolander scene. Yes. You gotta kill Ford. It's the only way. Does he know, always what's going on? Is he like a spider chilling in his web and he gets notified when someone says his name? Or like, can he only direct his attention in one place? Or can he even monitor what's going on?
Yeah.
Would he need to like, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'm glad we don't know because it's more fun to talk about that way.
Yeah.
But
it is a question.
It is a question I have, yeah. Which is really fun because it's essentially like the same question everybody asks about God at some point in their lives. Like, does he know everything that's going on?
Or Santa Claus.
That's true. If you want to cheapen it.
Does he see me now?
Ford is not a Santa Claus allegory, Alex.
Well, he did give us a shot of Anthony Hopkins holding a P90 with muzzle flashes lighting the scene. So it feels like he's Santa Claus
I would
now.
like a GIF of that.
Oh, there's already one on Reddit.
Is there?
So yeah,
okay.
It was the first thing somebody asked for.
When somebody can take that and put it into the Angels with Filthier Souls from Home Alone scene. Every 90s movie we reference in an episode, I want to reference at least twice. I feel like that's the record we have going.
That's
so
good.
We got to keep
good.
it going. Yeah,
right.
No, that was awesome.
Any other thoughts on the Man in Black and where he's at?
Nope.
Clearly Grace is probably going to save him, right? She was probably hot on his trail.
You think so?
I think Grace is going to make it to him.
I mean, there's still a chance that in the next episode she rolls up and he's dead and he just bled out. And I'll be like, oh, that's even worse. We don't even get to see his last words. He just died off camera like a chump. I don't know.
Unless he knows where more cheat codes are.
He's fine. He'll be fine.
What if his last words are, and we'll drink to the lady in the white shoes, and then we learn that William is actually Old Bill.
Old Bill. You know what? I don't like it because it's got to be Michael Wincott. It's Wincott or bust.
Fair enough.
Why haven't they brought him back? Hello. Oh, yeah. Dude, if we had seen like a functional and like virile Wincott walking through the street in the cradle, I would have lost my mind.
Even in the cradle, he still looks clearly like a robot.
He just can't look better. If that had happened, I would have just like karate kicked through my TV like Chris Pratt in Parks and Rec because I would have been so pumped.
Oh, I don't know if anybody listening to the show even knows who Old Bill is anymore.
That's true. Yeah, go back and watch episode.
We're literally the only two
1.
people. Yeah, he's in season 1 a couple times. He's our picture on the Facebook group.
Is he still?
He's still there.
And people are like, "What show is this from? He's from Deadwood. This from Gunsmoke. What's this doing here?
Carnival."
Yeah.
All right. Next up, copying Abernathy's data is taking too long, so Hale decides to rip his control unit out instead. Back in the cradle, Ford takes Bernard to a copy of Arnold's real-world house. We learn that Ford used the cradle with Dolores to workshop Bernard until he was ready, since Dolores' memory is perfect. They were in the cradle for years together until Bernard was able to fool Dolores. Ford ultimately removes Bernard's free will by inserting himself into Bernard's pearl, and the pearl gets replaced into Bernard's body. And after Bernard returns to the real world, Elsie knows that the cradle is no longer clogged up anymore, and it's back online. All right. There's a lot there.
Yep.
Nick, you were right. You were right last week. I was wrong.
About what?
This was not Ford pulling more Arnold together to put into Bernard. It was Ford actually, when he was making Arnold, were the cradle scenes that we have been seeing throughout this season. So
I don't remember taking that stance, but I'm glad to hear.
Well, you didn't, because I convinced you out of it very early on. But you ended up being correct. It was kind of a mix of what all three of us had kind of talked about. So
cool.
It worked out. Okay.
I was also absolutely wrong about the timeline theory that I had, so I broke even because I thought maybe the Elsie Bernard stuff was happening post 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
But as soon as the walkie came alive and was like, "Oh, we're under attack," and she's like, "Oh no," and then looks at Bernard, I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah, it kind of.
I mean, that's fine.
It does mean that there still isn't some timeline wonkiness with Bernard at some point. That's the fourth.
That one line
is
still just hanging. What is the full title?
Timeline wonkiness.
Timeline wonkiness. Yeah. Oh, I like that. It sounds lighthearted.
That line still sticks out. Like I think there might be a reveal that plays towards that.
Something. I feel like if there's not, I'm gonna look back on that as either I'm focusing too much on it. The line in question, if anyone is confused by this point, is when he says, I'm not really here with you, am I? Or something like that.
Yeah, when Elsie is opening up the door to James Delos.
The Delos Chamber.
Yes.
Delos Chamber.
That's the third album.
Yeah, it sounds like a song. It could be an album, I guess. I don't know.
No,
anyway.
it's a prog rock band.
Yeah, and it's an album, and each track gets like slightly better. Like they're all really short, and by the last one, it's like a 10-minute song. They just get longer. Anyway, yeah, that line. It just was so haunting and like seemed so important. And either I'm focusing way too much on it, and it has been explained away in a way that is like simple and I just didn't catch. Or
remind listeners of the line specifically.
No,
so I just said.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, did you?
You missed it.
Why was it? How did I miss it?
You're not paying enough attention to the podcast. No, it's...
John went into sleep mode briefly.
When Bernard and Elsie are in the hallway leading into the James Delos chamber, she's trying to open up the door, and Bernard is trying to stop her, but he can't.
Yeah, and he says, I'm not even here with you.
Am I? Yeah.
Am I? Right, okay.
So, and that just feels like a very important moment. But
sometimes your words come out so fast, and I'm like trying to catch up.
You're not really here with us, are you?
No, I'm not. I guess not. It's like I was telling Alex the first episode he had me on. Is like my comprehension for this stuff is terrible. Like
we talk pretty rapidly.
We do.
Our loquaciousness has been remarked on before.
That's true.
And I'm trying. Like I'm still trying to like process what you've said as you're saying additional things, so I'm not.
John's like, why would you kick your TV if you were excited?
Well, no, I sat there for a second and I was like, oh yeah, Johnny Karate, like that.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that line it might not be important, but if it doesn't, it feels like it's something that has to be addressed, you know?
Yeah.
Unless it's just symptomatic of his slippage, but he doesn't really have anything to slip back to.
Maybe it could have been one of the different Bernard versions, you know? Like the one that he currently did not go through that with her specifically, or isn't going through.
Or maybe it just alludes to him going there with Ford or
a previous
Ford or not Fordor. It's like Hodor. Just a different guy. Fordor. Because it kind of seems like more people than just William were paying visits to James Delos, or at least were aware of him.
There's at least a team of people.
And like Ford presumably knew all about it and had wandered down there. Because Delos wouldn't know. I mean, he's in like an apartment basically. He can't see anything outside. So
yeah. And
I don't know. I guess William could lock. William is technically kind of the boss. He could like say, "Don't let Ford in here." Like it's not
theoretically, yeah. But I don't know that he would have a need to.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's one thing I'm really dying to learn more about is the Ford-William relationship. That's the number one reason William can't die yet. We need to know.
Yeah.
As the great Tom Petty said, I need to know.
Yeah. So I think it's crazy the idea that it took the Cradle years to perfect Bernard. I'm not crazy, but I think it's interesting and I think it's cool.
Especially considering how time would potentially move differently there.
And how powerful of a supercomputer it must be if you have hundreds of host processors hooked up, essentially. Like it must have some serious computing power beyond the likes of Watson and whatever else we have around today.
Yeah, but this is also where Ford explained why he's able to have the consciousness he has and be stable in a body as opposed to Delos and Ford, like why Ford can't go into a body on his own, right?
Yeah.
That was this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they mentioned like we didn't have your consciousness, so we had to rebuild it based off of what we knew, and that like presumably would take significantly longer than just like copying a consciousness. Like they're building bits and pieces of like memories that Dolores had with him or whatever, you know, like they're prodding Dolores's brain to pick out her memories of Bernard or Arnold, and you know, who knows what they poked and prodded out of Ford's own brain to like figure out who Bernard was or Arnold. God, I'm doing it now. You did it.
Yeah. It's just
that's true.
Comes with the
Bernard.
No, that's absolutely true. Like that totally makes sense.
And that's why Bernard is unique and able to survive in the real world, right? Because he is
because he's not a copied consciousness. Yeah. He was a built one, just like all of the other hosts are built consciousnesses.
Yeah.
Like so, that's like for lack of a better phrase, like mind-blowing to me. Like
that's
just
awesome,
that idea.
He's kind of the crossover. He's like part Arnold, part Bernard, and is able to.
He is a creation based off of a previous version, so to speak, and is doing so
populated with that person's memories.
Is functional. It's just super cool.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of one of the things that I was wondering of, like, is it not so much that they're copying the entire consciousness in the form of memories from these people, but just like how they would act, and like what does that make them when they're made? Like, was Delos just programmed to act like Delos but not actually who he was, which gets at the bigger question of it all anyway. Like, was it actually Delos that was in the copies? But I don't know. Shit's too big for me to think about.
I think it's so cool.
It is very cool.
It's terrifying to think about, though. Even just Bernard's crisis in this episode, I was watching and I was like, this is really stressing me out.
Well, no, and I was about to say, as the blinds go down in that beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright house, and Anthony Hopkins goes Hannibal Lecter mode, as I saw on Reddit. That shit was
Still
terrifying. Like, that was really like, oh God, I was just scared for Bernard.
Yep. I loved, just to rewind again, Ford once again getting to snap his fingers and freeze everything. Reminded me of his conversation with Teresa in the restaurant, and I was like, so cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ford's great. Even if he is kind of a villain, but he's also kind of not, because he kind of wants the host to succeed. It's still unclear.
I don't know what he wants anymore.
It's unclear if he at least wants them to have a chance, it seems like. And he still apparently doesn't feel like they've got quite the level playing field.
I think he's just doing he's giving them the choice, Like it kind of parallels with like Maeve and Dolores, like having this like, we're giving you the option of choosing your own path at this point. And so he's giving that to them. Like he's
kind of, but he's also taking it from Bernard when convenient. He's giving him his choice, which is interesting.
He's taking it from Bernard to like put his thumb on the scale still, to kind of like...
I think he wants Westworld to go down. Like, Westworld will need to be liberated before he can consider it. Now you have a fighting chance. Like, okay, you have an island nation or whatever that is yours, and now you need to decide what to do with it.
He needs to cripple Delos's hold on the island before they have their ability to...
Yeah, and I think he needs to give them that moral and psychological victory of we've thrown off the chains of our captors, basically, and like this land and all of this is now ours, and nobody directly owns us, and now it's just us versus the human race kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it will be up to them to choose, do we want to coexist, do we want to overthrow them, or can we overthrow them?
There's a lot about shackles from Dolores in this episode, so that makes a lot of sense.
So I could see Ford wanting to do that, but I think he also wants to just smite Delos.
I mean, maybe he just knows that Delos has already, like, they're further along in the path of securing things than he wants them to be, and so he feels he needs to kind of interject.
It was his fail-safe.
Yeah.
To accelerate the process.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so now, I mean, here's the thing you just brought up that I hadn't really considered when I watched it, but so Ford puts himself in Bernard, basically.
Yeah.
And he's uploaded, and he's no longer in the cradle then.
Correct.
Yeah, so he doesn't have the influence that he did.
Elsie remarks that that the cradle is cleared up, that it, like, and the cradle says that the system rebooted as soon as Bernard's pearl gets removed, essentially.
Right, and then so did the hacker upstairs or whatever said the same thing. It's like the system debugged itself. Was Ford's presence causing a problem, or was he intentionally causing a problem?
I think
to draw Bernard and them there.
I think Ford was... I guess that's a great question.
I didn't think about it that way.
I think it could be both of those. I think it could be
I think he could lie undetected and not cause...
I mean, that would explain why they kept Elsie around, is because she knew... like they need to go to the cradle to like figure things out maybe, and then once they're in the cradle, like things would come calling back to Bernard that he would put himself in the cradle.
That makes a lot of sense because Ford is definitely proven himself to be like the master chess player, and he's even says he's like, I didn't tell Dolores to do anything. I knew what she would do.
Yeah,
and like he will know that if he removes Elsie, keeps her safe long enough to bring Bernard to the cradle and help him there. After that, her work is done.
Yeah,
but she's the only one. They have the rapport. She has the knowledge base. Like if he put Stubbs there, Stubbs would be like, which one's the door?
Right.
He wouldn't understand what to do. So, yeah, I dig Ford.
Yeah,
for sure.
Dude's a baller. Not Ford Brody, the protagonist of Godzilla.
Ford, God, I forgot that was his name. Oh my God. Oh. All right. Next up. Stubbs wants to flee, but Hale still won't give in since the key in Abernathy's head is, quote, a failsafe on a failsafe, a decryption key needed only in the unlikely event of a total catastrophic incident. Dolores finds her father with Hale and Stubbs, and she wants to know how to get the key out of her father's head. That line is real interesting, because Stubbs remarks that he's like, oh, you mean like now? Like this is the catastrophic incident? But there are people on the internet and myself kind of wondering, like, was Delos selling people not only a vacation, but the idea that they would live on in the event of like a nuclear holocaust or something like that? And like once something crazy happened to humanity, then they could go and unlock the Valley Beyond and populate the world with these human copy hosts. Like the line feels very peculiar to me. I realize that's a stretch, maybe, but what did you guys think about that? Did you think about that at all?
I didn't think about what you just said, but in you saying it now, it makes me think like what's going on outside of Westworld? Like what is happening right now? Like outside of the world that's making like this is so important, right? Not just to save it in general. I'm sure they wanted to save it in general, but Hale was there to get this anyways. Like, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was there to get it anyway because they were gonna fire Ford and they didn't want Ford to do this
to destroy it,
jeopize their data.
Wah, wah.
Mission failed.
Boom, Ford saw it coming. Mission failed. Mission over.
Yeah.
Out of bounds.
New Game Plus.
That seems like as you said, like a stretch to me because so far we've always been told the guests they go there for an escape and they don't know they're being monitored and they don't know their DNA is being collected. So unless that's Delos board knowing that and they're saying we need to extract it because we will be able to sell this to people. Like, oh, the hosts are breaking free and controlling the world and it's imminent disaster. All your money, please, and you can be inside one of these bodies. But then what good is that? And also, why are you counting on hosts eventually overthrowing everything? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then you would think that this wouldn't even be necessary because you would be able to stop it.
What if it was like at the end of a roller coaster, you get that picture, you know, like where it takes a picture on it. At the end of your stay in Westworld, you're like walking through the train terminal and they're like, oh, take a look at this. And it's a full copy of yourself acting like you in front of you.
I mean, I definitely think
do you want to become this?
I think we would have seen something like that by
well,
now.
But that, I mean, would that be their end game, essentially? Would that be what Delos is working towards once they figure out the cognitive plateau situation, essentially?
The comparison there is awesome.
Yeah, and as soon as
that's
you said
fucking
it,
terrifying.
all I could think of is the picture of The Rock on Splash Mountain, where he takes up like the whole car by himself.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Absolutely.
If you're listening and you haven't seen that, Google it. Just The Rock Splash Mountain. It's so funny.
I've got a really good one from the Top Thrill at Cedar Point of Nicole just horrified on the way up and then completely relieved on the way down.
That's good.
It's so good.
And what's your expression?
I'm just enthused the entire time because that's my favorite one.
Same
there.
face.
Yeah.
Just in both.
Yep. But
that's an awesome comparison.
It feels like that line means something more. Like the fact that Stubbs is like, you mean now? And she's just like completely
I think maybe it's also
to
just because for once she doesn't have a clever retort because yes, like now
the world is melting around her.
Exactly. Yeah. Like And even Dolores is kind of like you're used to being in control, so this must be frustrating for you. I think it's the same thing that she's got, security lackey questioning her, and he's right. And she's like, Also, why didn't she just yank the thing out of his head to begin with and already get on a chopper and get the hell out of Dodge?
That's what I said last week when they stapled him to the chair.
Is it less safe? Is it safer to try to extract it?
Well,
and
maybe it's like
is it like force ejecting something
from
a computer?
Like pulling a thumb drive without ejecting it properly.
They need to use the extractor helmet to safely eject the hardware.
Yeah.
Safely remove Abernathy.
Mr. Costa does remark that he doesn't want to remove the natives' control unit in the field because it's not sterile or something of that nature. So that could be the case.
Maybe this ridiculous analogy is somewhat on the mark. That it's better to extract it the right way. In like, because even say the guy who's going to do it, he's like, it's a lot to offload or whatever. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Maybe that is a safer way to do it, is just port it all over to a different device and then upload from there. Maybe they were planning on uploading on site.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I don't know, but it seems like as soon as the explosion happened, I would have been like, get that out of his head and let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Hale's not necessarily the best at this.
Yeah.
I did like seeing her kind of like, be afraid
on the defensive.
Get
her comeuppance. It was kind of nice to see her put in her place like that. I dug that because I don't like her.
I was gonna ask Nick because I know that you haven't enjoyed her performance since season 1. Even.
Her performance is better. She makes more sense now. I think that everything in her introduction felt really forced, and I was like, this is just goofy writing. And it's funny, every time I see the writing for the show criticized, someone responds with, you try writing 300 stories in a month or something like that. Sizemore's line. I just didn't think she really got there in season 1 in a way that made sense to me, but this feels, her personality makes more sense in this context.
Yeah.
Like she's sort of supposed to be this damage control person, and in season 1 we weren't there yet.
Yeah.
And now we're in a damage control scenario, but I do think there are other characters, like Strand seems to have a personality even more geared towards that.
Yeah.
But all of these characters are so like sure of themselves that it's ultimately going to be their downfall, I'm sure. They're all so certain that they're right. Like Coughlin in this episode. These people are they can't even seem to think about the possibility that maybe things won't go their way, which is a dangerous habit in a contingency plan person. You would think that they would need to be aware of all possibilities, or like as many that are as likely. So it's frustrating to watch. I mean, it's fine because I can sort of consider them the villains, so it's like fine. But at the same time, it's frustrating to be like, man, these people are supposed to be like the best.
The best of the best.
Yes, and they're idiots.
You made me think about the fact that Strand told Malling when she finds Abernathy to bring him to Strand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's making me wonder if, like, once the humans get to the Valley Beyond and they have it there, whether or not they're just going to destroy themselves without any real intervention by the hosts anyway. Like, are Strand and Hale going to fight over it? Because they want to be the ones to bring the...
That's true, too.
Bring the paper to Dad.
A bit of a power struggle.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's another common personality trait probably to be like, I need to do it myself. Like, I can't trust someone else to do the job. But
that's true.
Hale has failed. So by the time Strand comes in, she's lost it. She had it in her hands and it slipped through her fingers.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right. There is an awesome. I'm gonna make it the picture for this episode, but when Dolores is looking at her father, the ring of lighting that is behind her, reflected in the window, makes it look like there's a halo above her head, which I thought was very interesting. And in a little way, she's kind of like the angel of death as well in the situation for her father, at least. True. But I just thought that was cool.
I would just put forth a vote for P90 Ford for the. It's a spoiler though.
Yeah, that's the main problem with it. Like I'm totally there with you. Like I was ready to make Ford the picture last week, but then I was like, I don't want anybody to know.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's nice of you.
Yeah. So we're considerate here
yeah.
on Westworld FM.
Some of us.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Coughlin heads down to the lower levels to prevent Dolores from taking her father. Bernard sends Elsie away on Ford's orders, and we see Clementine go down fighting by the extraction team, or fighting the extraction team. Angela gets shot and flees with a purpose to the cradle. The second in command of the extraction team follows her there and seduces her to use his grenades to blow up the cradle. Dolores explains that she knows what Delos' secret project is, and it's to make humans into hosts. And she explains the cradle backups of hosts aren't an advantage, just another shackle that Delos has placed on them. Rest in peace, Angela, but your death was probably the most infuriating scene of this season to me.
Yeah.
It's just so stupid.
Yeah, it seemed really out of place and dumb.
Like the fact that this dude who just is seeing his team get slaughtered is then going to go and be like, I'm going to bang you real quick before I put you down. Like, ugh. It's disappointing. Like that, this to me was worse than any of the Felix and Sylvester stuff in season 1 in terms of logic leap.
This felt like it was not a scene from Westworld.
Yeah.
This was pretty poor.
Yeah.
You try writing 300 stories in 1 month. No, it sucked from her point of view, too, because what's your plan here? You have been tasked with bringing down the cradle, the linchpin of this entire effort, and you're just going to stand there and kind of think about it while this guy, like...
Yeah. Yeah.
Not good on either of them.
I didn't understand, like, if I were that dude, you're taking her out the second you have a shot.
For sure.
And he just hesitated for whatever reason and had to, like, talk to her the whole time. Like, it just made no sense.
This was the only time the show has devolved into stereotypes. It felt just out of place.
It just felt like a cheesy movie. Yeah.
He essentially just lost all of the host backups, the entire cradle, because he didn't kill her as soon as he saw her, essentially.
Right.
And that, the best of the best, as Nick was saying. Like, this dude is not the best of the best. This is not smart people doing smart things.
No, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Ford probably holds these people in very low regard. I'm sure he thinks like Delos is too stupid to take necessary action and to actually counter him effectively, and he's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because if it had been like Coughlin down there personally, he would have handled it.
Oh, yeah.
Coughlin
for sure.
Like, yeah, sorry. You look good. See you later.
Like he would have shot her and then like, what a waste, or something like that. But
this is like how it should have ended.
Yeah.
Like those videos.
Yeah. But anyway, she must be the first real death of the show. Like, we won't see her after this.
I don't think Clementine's coming back either.
Clementine, she didn't get shot in the head, did she?
But the backups are gone.
The backups are gone, but her control unit's still intact.
I guess that's true.
She's basically a zombie anyways. So.
Well, yeah, that's
true.
But
yeah, that's true. She might come back. So yeah, Angela is toast. And everyone we see getting executed in 2 weeks later, I guess, maybe is done.
Anybody shot in the head, potentially, yeah.
Does that mean Rebus is gone?
Rebus could be gone. I don't think he gets shot in the head, though. I don't think they actually get executed. They just, executed in the sense of, like, shot in the head.
They just put the bodies down.
Yes,
and then,
yeah. So, yeah, like, that's interesting to me that we are now going to see the real consequence. It seems like Abernathy's probably done, too. Like, his head is so messed up and they don't have a backup anywhere.
Poor guy.
Yeah. But
Lewis Hartham, so awesome.
For sure. So good. Sad to see him go. Yeah, Dolores knowing what Delos' secret project is, I think is interesting. We know that she's been listening over the past 30 years to everything that's been going on. She was there when William was talking about it with James Delos, but to kind of have her come out and say it and be the one to like reveal it to Stubbs, essentially, I think is interesting.
That's true. And to put the fear into Hale as well by saying like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, I know what you're doing, and
I'm going to stop that exact thing.
Hale kind of being like, you wouldn't know what you're doing, what to even do with it, and then Dolores just being like, I know exactly what I want to do with it. Like, I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I don't know. And we talked earlier about Ford wanting to remove Dallas's control of them. Like, I'm very torn on the backup situation. The idea that like she wouldn't see it as an advantage and would instead see it as another way for them to control her. Like, I guess it's just an external piece of leverage that she doesn't want to have to worry about.
Well, because, I mean, Ford was controlling some of the park through the cradle too, right?
Yeah.
So what's stopping the quality assurance or the special teams coming in from using the cradle to their advantage as well?
That's true.
Maybe she must also remember using it as the testing chamber for Bernard.
Yeah, like she knows what it's capable of.
That it can run these incredible simulations that don't even have to do with the park necessarily.
Right.
Anything is possible in there.
Beyond just having backups of the host, like its potential is significantly more than just that.
It just seems like it seems to me that they would benefit from the ability to...
You're not wrong.
The whole purpose, like the idea that humans want to become hosts because hosts can live forever, like this now removes that. Not completely, but it now makes it more difficult for that to be a reality even for the hosts themselves.
No, I think there are definitely advantages to hanging on to it, but the thing is how you can't take the cradle seems like it's inherent to the structure.
Yeah.
So you can't like put it in your pocket.
They wouldn't be able to just kind of like keep it in one thing.
Right. It's not a bargaining chip or anything. Yeah. It's just you either have to stay there and defend it, which the world will throw, Delos will throw everything they can at it to try to get it back and or destroy it and remove it from the equation.
That's
so
true.
I guess I get the tactical decision from like a military perspective. That's certainly what the United States Army would probably do. Just saying it.
This is what we want. Let's
actually
go
in this equation they would not be the hosts. That's for sure. They would be Delos. So.
Yeah,
it's an interesting choice, and ultimately the one that's definitely going to be more thematically interesting to watch unfold as the show progresses.
All right, next up. With the cradle blown up, Dolores goes to kill Hale, but the extraction team pulls Teddy away from her and gives Stubbs a chance to escape with Hale. As Teddy is dismantling the team and brutally destroys Coughlin, Dolores says goodbye to her father and works to remove his control unit. Yeah, Grizzly is in full force here.
Yeah, watching Teddy just beat the crap out of Coughlin.
Well, even like the he takes out like 7 guys pretty much on his own with the guns, and then dropping the guns and just fighting Coughlin. Like the insane, repetitious, mechanical,
the punching
percussion of his punching is just so horrifying and interesting to watch.
It was awesome.
Yeah, Terminator 2, Teddy.
Yeah.
Or T2 or Ted 2. Teddy 2, T2, Super T2 is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like James Marsden he's like a different character. It's crazy. Even to where Maeve could just look at him and be like, yeah, whatever you did to him.
Absolutely.
There might be some data transfer there as well where Maeve can understand what happened, but it's it's nuts. And I did admire that too. I remember thinking that the shot from behind of him punching, the force of it and how measured it was. I remember thinking like, this is really cool. Like the act
measured and rhythmic,
mm-hmm.
and
just emotionless
for sure. Very cold and calculated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I feel like when things like that happen in other movies, when characters get into these like killing frenzies, it's usually accompanied by some sort of outburst, or like it gets faster as they just get more crazed.
Yeah, the rhythmic thing,
or their face changes, but it was just surgical. Like, okay, I just gotta kill him. Oh, he's dead now? Okay,
mission complete.
I'm done. Yeah, and the way he and the shot of him walking away and picking up the gun, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
The rhythmic thing was cool. It kind of echoes one of the scenes in Detroit Become Human, actually. Like when when one of the androids is losing its composure and starts rhythmically smacking its head on the table. Did you get that scene, Alex?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Actually, but that's interesting.
Yeah. So it was an interrogation scene with Connor, and one of the deviant androids ends up kind of as it's losing its mind, its defense mechanism is to destroy itself.
Yeah.
As we know in the story, this is no spoiler by any means, but in my playthrough, this particular android continuously started bashing its head against the table.
Yeah.
Until it was able to actually, one of the guards steps in and like releases it from its chains, and it grabs the guard's gun and kills itself. Like,
yeah.
So, but yeah, I just I didn't think about that just until right now. Like literally that parallel of again, but
the
Detroit become human
of it.
in Westworld. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a thing about Abernathy that I want to come back to at the end. What did you guys think of Dolores' goodbye and their kind of moment together?
I'm so sorry, Dolores. I tried to take care of you, but I...
Whatever became of that fearsome ne'er-do-well?
Vanished the day I became your father. I am who I am because of you. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Are you ready, Daddy?
I love you, baby girl.
I love you too.
It's touching.
His acceptance of it was very interesting to me. Like, he just wants to be put out of his misery.
I don't know why Dolores always makes me question what is real and what isn't, and Maeve doesn't. I think that's interesting just for me personally, to think that with Maeve, I believe it's genuine emotion, and with Dolores, I think, like, is it real, though? Like, do you consider this your dad?
Yeah.
And he considers you his daughter. I understand why he does, because he doesn't
He's
necessarily know the truth yet.
Yeah.
But with her, it's funny, because I wonder, like, why are you carrying through with this? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing to me, is
she
that
even talks down to Maeve later about like her daughter.
But the moments of her like actually showing emotion for me are what feels the realest to me for some reason. It's not the cold calculating cult leader Dolores that I've grown somewhat tired of that feels genuine. It is the moments with her father to me that feel...
that's the most relatable to you as an actual human, is the actual emotion that's conveyed and the feelings that she may or may not actually be having. Like, you as a human are actually able to relate to those.
So I guess I'm not going to be a cult leader anytime soon, so that's good.
Yeah.
Bad news for the network. No, I see what you're saying. I don't dispute that.
I get what you're saying, too.
Yeah, I call into question why she bothers. Like, is it just that she can't help it because she does genuinely feel these feelings despite her knowing better? Like, okay, I know that this is a fabricated relationship, but I still consider this person my father.
I mean, it could just be her going in and out of her loop still, like not necessarily having full control.
Or maybe
yet.
she is at the point now where she can actually feel genuine emotion. Like, maybe it's, I mean, hypothetically, if he was her father for 30 years in the park, she has all of her memories are unlocked. So maybe
she has
for
that
her,
context now.
It is a wave of genuine emotion made up of nostalgia and good times. Like, if she thought they were genuine good times, at least for her, I don't know. Maybe it is the.
To me, what she says to Maeve felt like a lesson that she learned there.
Yeah, it's true, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe despite the fact that she knows that this is not real, she still allows herself to feel it for a second.
Yeah.
And maybe she also pities him. Maybe she does feel bad for him because
he can't make it to the Valley Beyond.
She considers and she considers herself alive or like unlocked. So maybe she's like, he won't get there, and that's sad for him.
That's fair.
He's gonna die, essentially, still a computation.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Ford guides Bernard to the control room to destroy the equipment the extraction team brought in to take control of the park in order to ensure Dolores has free reign. Sizemore pulls up to the mesa, but the QA team abandons him and Maeve as they hear the control room has been breached. More great Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, is this the moment in the hallway where it like transitioned from his reflection to him actually being there?
Yes.
Oh, that was so awesome.
Yeah, that was the best.
Actually, that was previously.
That was when he
kinda
ditches
skipped over
Elsie.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was the coolest.
That's
Yes.
I meant to bring that up too. That to me, that whole scene of him like, let me take control for a moment here because I know you can't handle this.
Yeah.
Was super cool, and the whole scene reminded me of Metal Gear Solid with Psycho Mantis kind of taking control of the second controller and picking your brain, it was a very cool moment to have him be like, I know you can't handle doing this, so let me do it for you. And then he kills the lights, and then you get to see this brutal Anthony Hopkins with a P90 just fucking mowing down that dude. Like,
yeah, absolutely,
so good.
I wish he had two of them. Like Bernard is holding one, but when it shows Hopkins, he's got two.
Cheat code. Beautiful.
Yeah, God mode.
Yeah, there's a beautiful shot of Anthony Hopkins leaning against the red reflective walls.
Yes.
And you see it start to distort and his nose start to grow in the reflection. There's all kinds of reflections all over this entire series, but as he's talking about the story of Alexandria, the library in Alexandria being burned, his you see his nose start to grow in the reflection.
I didn't catch that.
Somebody on Reddit called it his Pinocchio moment, which I was like, wow, that's it's not like he's necessarily lying there, but I don't know. The whole analogy to me felt like kind of a dual purpose in that the burning of the park is the start of a new story, but also potentially like the burning of humanity is the beginning of another story as well.
It's true, yeah. And that just because 10,000 stories were lost, like that might just be necessary in his mind. And I like that he, at the end of the day, equates everything to a story. It's all about a story, and that's all that really matters is like
the master storyteller.
Taking that away. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and it seems like he tries to will Bernard, or not will him, but let him arrive at the decision to destroy the equipment that's controlling the park, but I don't know what to trust or believe there. It seems like that is something that Bernard chooses to do, but he doesn't choose to pick up the machine gun later. I don't really necessarily...
I think this was a deliberate choice on Bernard's part. He definitely seems to
want to help
take
Dolores.
A pause and then go, you know what, because he's not human. So I think ultimately he's going to be like, you know what do I owe?
Let's help our team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The whole sequence, all of the action unfolding around them and in the background was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Still no bear.
That's what I was just going to say.
There is still not a bear in the control room.
We don't know where the bear has come from yet.
Yes.
The source of bear.
My biggest question in this season is,
where is bear?
What is that bear? How is bear? What is bear? Where is bear?
It's actually one of the Bernard copies is a bear.
One of the earliest ones, Ford was like, maybe we'll just make the whole park animals.
I was just thinking of that illustration
it's Bernard.
I was thinking of the illustration of man evolving and standing up, and it starts with a bear and it becomes Bernard. At the end of it.
Or a bear standing on two legs,
That's true. Yeah.
Maybe he was just practicing for Zoo World.
It's the final evolution of Bernard as a bear.
Yes.
Zootopia World.
All right. Sizemore hides as Dolores makes it to the garage. Dolores sees Maeve and almost kills Maeve, so she can't be used against them. But Dolores backs down after Maeve says that she made a promise to her daughter, telling Maeve that she is free to choose her own path. Yeah, so Dolores' line is, the kin they gave us is just another rope they used to lash us down. Coming back to the shackles, of course. Mm-hmm. And I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in regards to Dolores and Teddy's relationship and her kind of realizing that her love for him is more of a burden or a problem than an actual advantage or something that she wanted to feel. The idea that she's kind of aware of the fact that the family that the familial ties they feel are not, they were programmed into them and not something that they actually feel, as we have discussed. I think is just, it seems like they're kind of nailing that theme home a bit, and with good reason, at least. And Dolores saying, "You're free to choose your own path. I'm sorry, this is where it ends." Like, did you think that was her taking her first encounter with Maeve this season to heart and kind of being like, I said I would let you be free, so I'm not going to kill you here?
What was the line that Dolores says to her about the woman I know? Do you have that?
I do.
She said, "How did you get here?
How did you get here? The woman I know would have done anything to survive."
Yeah.
And then Maeve mentions they have my daughter and she's still out there or something of that sort. And then that's when Dolores says, "The kin they gave us is just another rope they used to lash us down." So, yeah.
I just like that line.
No, yeah, it's good.
I think Dolores kind of partially thinks she's a goner. She's just going to bleed out and die there.
She's writing her off.
Yeah, I think she's kind of like, it's too bad it ends here, thinking like, okay, I won't shoot you right now, but you're going to, if they catch you, they're just going to tear you apart.
Pick your brain.
They're going to de-res you, as another great world would describe.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is a classic like supervillain thing to do.
Yeah.
Just walk away and be like,
I don't have to
leave
kill you
there.
Or I don't have to help you, but I don't have to. What is
Batman Begins?
Yeah,
I don't have to save you either.
I just
yeah.
butchered that so bad.
Good try. I was thinking more of like Austin Powers when he's like, I'm just gonna lower the door and not watch you die and give you all this time to escape, kind of thing.
Yeah. Much more apt comparison.
Thank you. Don't misquote Batman or miscontextualize Batman again. Don't do that.
Dolores leaves this scene to go get their horses, but why the hell aren't they taking the QA cars?
I don't think they know how to drive.
Yeah, that was my thought.
So somebody asked that in the quick questions thread.
Go ahead.
Somebody asked that on the quick questions thread, and I responded. I was like, maybe they don't know how to drive, and I mean, obviously they'd be able to learn it, but
I was really hoping that, like, and it just like in my mind, it made me laugh, and maybe that's all it's worth. But I was like, the shot of Dolores riding was like really violent. The way it was shot was like really aggressive and cool. It was like, and she had this look on her face that was like pretty crazed. I was like, this is like scary. Like usually she looks like majestic or like just gorgeous when she's riding a horse, but this was like scary. But I was really hoping in the wide shot that like a car would pull in the foreground with Teddy just driving it. And he's just got a machine gun in the other hand and he's one hand on the wheel. Yeah, exactly.
I just want to see Teddy in one of those like bursting through boulders, like just completely ramming them and they explode.
Yeah, or he's trying to get in one and just like reverses and crashes and can't figure it out.
Back to Austin Powers.
Yeah, Teddy's just stuck in the hallway.
Oh, beautiful. So
no, I
good.
mean, the more likely is that we'll see Teddy standing on a horse, like holding the reins like that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right.
2 horses, 1 foot on each saddle.
The next scene is only one sentence because I wanted to pause and revel in it. Ford possesses/convinces Arnold to slaughter a few QA people with the P90 in the hallway in some of the most awesome shots of the series.
Yes.
It's just too good. Using the muzzle flash essentially to like quickly light just a sliver of Anthony Hopkins standing in the darkness destroying people is if this series exists for nothing else, it gave us that shot.
It gave us Anthony Hopkins holding a gun, which I don't know if I've ever seen before. Not necessarily celebrating gun violence, but there's something spectacular about Sir Anthony Hopkins holding a futuristic P90.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's a good trick. I feel like we're starting to see it more now, the idea of using muzzle flash to like light a scene.
Yeah.
But it looks cool. It's elevated in this series by cutting between the two of them.
Yes.
And keeping it so precise in terms of the framing. But the implication of him just taking over Bernard and just being like, it's for your own good. Like you won't have to decide. I'll just do it. And then you don't have to worry about it. But like, is that any better, you know?
It's sending Bernard deeper into this hole of like, not only is he having issues learning he's a host, but also and realizing that his job was like a hoax, but then he's also kind of like got to deal with the moral implications.
Yes.
Nick looked like he was going to say something.
I was, but I had to take an extra second to think it through. So I didn't even consider this while I was watching it, or immediately after watching it I didn't consider this until just now. But is it safe to assume then that all the 2 weeks later, Ford is in the driver's seat?
We don't know.
And there's a reason why Bernard is acting funky, and it's because Ford is riding shotgun or has taken control.
I mean, it's just not something that we know for sure. And we'll talk about it a little bit more after this next scene, but what I'm envisioning in my mind is Ford and Bernard like duking it out in Bernard's brain as he's debugging himself, trying to rid himself of Ford. But
wow.
And that's why Bernard has been so despondent and non-reactive.
Because there's these dueling minds vying for control.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Any final thoughts on Anthony Hopkins with P90?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to get a canvas print of it.
For sure.
Hanging in my living room.
All right. Bernard slips through time once again back to an interrogation room with Hale. Mr. Costa stands by with Strand, and they note the heavy fragmentation of Bernard's brain where he's trying to debug himself. Hale wants to know where Abernathy's control unit is, and Bernard flashes back to pulling a control unit out of a receptacle. We see him mouth the words Sector 16, Zone 4. He then replies once again when Hale asks him with people in the room. And Strand remarks that they will have to return to the Valley Beyond, because that is where Sector 16, Zone 4 is. So we've seen the Valley Beyond.
Apparently.
We've been there already. It's where all the hosts were dead in the water. And now we know that for pretty much, for certainty, pretty much. Like,
So the big showdown is going to happen at the Valley Beyond. Or the big trap that's waiting to be...
Yes, to be sprung on them. Like, it doesn't really tell us a whole lot. We don't really know exactly what it means, but that seems to be where everyone is headed, and that makes sense because we know that most of the hosts were lying there dead in the water.
So they were already there.
Yeah.
And they already were there, and it was there, supposedly. Like, they got to feel kind of dumb.
Well, supposedly while they're doing this, I guess Malling should be out there still like trying to drain the valley.
Right, just pick up the phone and go, "Yo,
yeah, we found it.
Abernathy's Pearl is, or what is it? A control unit?
Yeah, same thing. Chestnut.
Look around." She looks down. It's like right there. Oh, yep, this one. I get that.
She pulls it out, and then the whole valley drains in that one hole that's in the ground.
All the bodies somehow fit in there. Hale just looks so pleased with herself, and I'm like, yeah, but you were already, like, it may have eluded you again because you were there. You know what I mean? Like, y'all seem so good work, team. Let's go back to where we were already. Like, it's just kind of like, why isn't anybody like, oh, like, there needs to be like an obnoxious character to walk in. You guys were already there, and you, like, Wallace Shawn or something walks in. You had it in your hands, and you didn't get it.
Yeah, well, and I guess here's the thing is that some people are theorizing that Ford is in there lying to them or directing them to this place.
That'd be so much more satisfying if he's sending them back.
For the reason to kill them or do something. But
I do like that Bernard shakes himself out of analysis mode. That's kind of cool. Nobody pays attention to that. Like, he's in there, and then that could potentially be another idea. Is that like Ford can't actually be in analysis?
He can't go into analysis mode because Ford has like given him protections against it.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, how did Bernard get back to this? I really like the idea of Ford just being in there.
Yeah,
and it reminds me of. I know you haven't read the Dark Tower books, but in the second Dark Tower book, which is my favorite,
I saw the movie though.
Well, doesn't count. This does not. None of the stuff in the second book is actually. It's the only one that really doesn't get touched. Thankfully, it's my favorite of the books. But the protagonist is able to eventually in the book, he kind of comes into the real world, but he is like in people's heads, and he's able to come forward, is how he describes it, and take control of them and like speak through them and like perform actions
Quantum
through them.
leap.
Yes, and then he's able to also like sit back and let them resume control, but he's still there. He's like watching, and he can communicate with them. He can talk to them while he's in there and say like, okay, now turn left here and walk there. Like he can kind of tell them, guide them through situations. But I won't say anything more than that. But it's such an incredible book.
Yeah.
You should get it on Audible or whatever.
And that is Ford and Bernard.
Yeah, which is really fun. I keep wanting to I keep wanting to use the terminology from that book in this situation, but I realize that it'll be lost.
Yeah.
So Yoop, I know you've read him. If you're listening to this show, does Yoop listen to this show too?
He does. I don't know if he does it as it airs or not.
Hey, Yoop.
But I know that he has listened to Westworld.
Love you, buddy.
Before. Any other thoughts real quick before I get to my like brief, not theory, but just kind of like observation?
No, let's hear it.
So last week I talked about how Abernathy being nailed to the chair is very Jesus-y.
Mm-hmm.
And combining that with the idea of the data in his head is a fail-safe for potentially allowing humans to become hosts, like the humans of the park become hosts. I kind of thought of him as like the second coming of Christ kind of situation of like the people who have come to Westworld for some reason are the ones that get to have their eternal life. I just thought it was kind of not that we know that any of that is true, but the kind of like what I was reasoning out in my head kind of linked it up together of like
he is cool.
He is the second coming of Jesus. I just thought it's kind of an interesting little parallel, but
it is.
It doesn't have any larger meaning or anything as of yet, but maybe I'll work on
Ford's religion.
Yeah, Ford's
Ford is God. Abernathy is Jesus.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. So everyone think on that one for a week. Write in. Let me know what you think about it.
If in 3 days Abernathy just sits up, emerges from his
without
his
a control
bag.
unit somehow.
Zombie Abernathy.
Yes. It's Abernathy.
This is a really awesome episode.
It was very good.
I liked it quite a bit.
Hopkins was well missed. Well, not well missed, but it's good to have him back.
Yes.
And
it feels like it's been longer than it actually has. When you realize it's only been 6 episodes that he hasn't been on the show, it's like feels like an eternity though.
Yeah.
A lot has happened. I still retain my overall gripe about this season. It hasn't completely dissolved yet. I think season 1 was so much more compelling in a lot of ways. This one, I feel like we're still just. I don't know.
We're going through the plot machinations more so than
we're not really given a lot of this episode and the Delos episode and was it the previous episode that ended with. I know it ended with him finding Ford and all that. Anyway, those 3 gave us a lot more to sink our teeth into, but they haven't pointed us in a clear direction of exactly what the question is. But it's taking on clearer shape.
I think the thing that we're still kind of missing is the end game of Delos' secret project.
Yes,
that I think is what the biggest. It's got the biggest potential for a mind fuck. It's got the biggest.
Mind love make, Alex.
Yes, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Family show.
Yes. Teddy butt counter up to 2, please. But
twice the teddy butt. Can we handle it?
It feels like that could be one of the biggest revelations, and I'm interested to see what it really is, because we know what it is, but we don't know why. We don't know their end game. We don't know, like, if it is as simple as we wanted to sell you a copy of yourself or something like that, then maybe, but it feels like there's more there.
Yep.
So
yeah, I think that'll help. Right now the show still feels kind of like lost in that we're being shown a lot, and Anthony Hopkins' presence or Ford's presence answers a lot of questions, but at the same time all it does is raise more.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing still.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Which in of itself isn't bad either. I mean, if it was the same season 1, it wouldn't be as good. So
for sure. All right. Once again, you can find more episodes of our podcast on westworld.fm. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. We're Westworld FM on Twitter, and you can email us at westworldfm@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our show and share your thoughts on HBO's Westworld. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Westworld or our podcast. The Midwest Podcast Network has several other shows about video games, horror movies, and more. Check out all of our shows at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Our theme music is the song Industrial Cinematic by Kevin MacLeod, and it is being used under an Attribution Creative Commons license. That's it for our episode this week. We're excited for the next episode of Westworld, and we'll have another episode of our podcast out after that. But until then, may you rest and have a deep and dreamless slumber.